this, where highest grossing, I guess that's what it is, but that's not what we should track. We should track ticket sales.
Yeah.
Because when I saw Home Alone, I think it was at the Dollar Theater, which was $1.
Exactly. So
just give me the number of tickets sold, not dollars made.
True.
But what do you think is up there?
it's got to be something like Marvel. Maybe like Deadpool?
You are correct.
Am I? Oh.
Deadpool is 3 of the top 5 highest grossing comedies ever.
What?
Deadpool and Wolverine's number 2, Deadpool 2 is number 4, and Deadpool is number 5.
How?
The number 1 highest grossing comedy of all time is Barbie.
That was my next guest.
Barbie and Deadpool and Wolverine are surprisingly close.
Huh.
For how big Barbie was and how like Deadpool and Wolverine, yeah, people saw it.
People saw it, but it wasn't
like,
like...
a cultural phenomenon.
Exactly.
And it didn't seem like it was in theaters for that long. They pushed it to Disney Plus right away.
That was my like next guess was Barbie.
And then there's a lot of franchises in there. All of the Men in Black movies are up there, Hangovers. There's a few Chinese movies in the top 10. The Detective Chinatown series.
Oh.
Hi Mom. Hi Mom was really big. But Home Alone is still holding on at number 15 and is the only movie, I think only 2 movies from the 90s, Men in Black from 1997 and Home Alone from 1990.
Wow. Yeah. Huh.
Everything else is quite recent. And all the Meet the Fockers and what did that come from? It wasn't Meet the Fockers first. Meet the Parents?
Meet the Parents, yeah. That's interesting that one series of movies can hold so many spots in the top 10.
Deadpool, so much more successful. I think it's also one of the highest grossing R-rated movies of all time. Maybe the highest. But we're not talking about Deadpool today. Maybe another time.
Maybe some other time.
Today we are talking all about the movie Home Alone. So welcome to another episode of I Love This, You Should Too. My name is Indy, head trauma Randhawa, and with me is Samantha, injured feet Randhawa.
What?
Well, because of the movie, and also most of my trauma has been to my head.
Yeah.
A few concussions, and most of yours has been to your feet.
Very true. I was like, why?
Just like Marv.
I kind of forgot that was in the movie, and I was like, why are you bringing that up on the podcast during Christmas episodes? Like, it's such a strange thing to bring up.
Because Marv takes it all in the feet, and Harry is mostly to the face and head. Although Marv gets an iron in the face, too. They spread it around.
True. Can't give all the head injuries to one guy.
So if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We usually go back and forth picking a movie that the other has not seen and maybe would normally hate, but I don't think you're going to hate this one. It is one that Samantha somehow, despite being born in the 80s, had never seen. So we remedied that. I said I loved this movie, and watching it again, you know what? Yeah, I do. I was correct. It still holds up. What did you think on your first sit-down watching of Home Alone?
I enjoyed it. I can see why everybody is like constantly quoting it, why it's everywhere still, even though it came out in 1990. And I really enjoyed watching it. It was really nice.
It's fun. And I think what I had forgotten is it's a good movie.
Yeah.
You know what? We were talking about Lights, Camera, Christmas. That was your Hallmark movie you brought. And I said, yeah, it's not blowing my mind, but it does most things quite well. Mm-hmm. The script is solid. The characters make sense. And I think you can say all of that about Home Alone as well. Mm-hmm. But Home Alone also has some extra things that I think makes it a better movie than Lights, Camera, Christmas.
I'm insulted.
But the script it's tight. It's a good, well-written, well-constructed movie, I thought.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Home Alone just because it felt like a movie that a parent wouldn't be bored at. Like, and I guess watching it as an adult, it's a good kind of measure of whether or not. And it's also something that a kid would find fun.
Absolutely. And there are so many things that I loved as a child I watch again now, and you're like, oh yeah, I get why I liked it then, but I'm not going to rewatch it anytime soon. This one stands the test of time, and I think when we go through this movie, I'm going to get into that a little bit, because there are certain things that I remember of how I felt about it when I was 5, 6 watching this for the first time, and how that's changed, because I still remember how this movie felt as a kid.
Yeah.
I think there were two big movies when I was a child, Ninja Turtles and Home Alone.
Right.
They were both huge, and they were both targeted at like my age, essentially. Mm-hmm. So let's go through the movie. We'll do it kind of chronologically, but there are some thematic stuff that we'll get into that will jump around a bit. And I guess, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Home Alone, we're going to spoil it for you.
Which was me yesterday.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe there's other people out there, but I suggest go watch the movie first. So we start off with that iconic Home Alone logo that I'm sure you know already.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I've seen that on merch, on posters, on movie theaters, everywhere.
And my tattoo.
Your tattoo. Indy has a tramp stamp of the Home Alone
Home
logo.
Alone. Oh, that would be such an odd choice, but now I kind of want one.
And I didn't know what it was from until today.
And even that logo, that's well done.
Yeah.
Because there's only one light on in the house, and all of the letters are capitals except for the one E that's a lowercase and kind of off to the side. And that's kind of Kevin and his family.
Yeah, it's just simple. It's like eye-catching, and there's so much going on the movie poster that it like doesn't need to be a big flashy thing. It's not really about the words, so.
And the first act I really like because it sets up him being kind of a jerk. It's not that he's just the victim, but a lot of it is about him being forgotten and pushed aside. And I'm the youngest child of 6, so watching this as a 5-year-old, a lot of that really resonated with me.
Yeah.
So that got me into it right away. And it's just those small things like he's not allowed to watch the movie with everyone else. And then he's always saying things like, well, get off the phone and make me, why don't you? Like, he's such a little smartass. And seeing a child act out that way, it was kind of like, oh, this kid's my hero.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that because I'll get slapped, but he can do it.
I can imagine that, yeah, seeing this as a kid and seeing a kid talk to adults like that, you'd be like, whoa,
It blew my mind.
Crazy.
I love the, Kevin, you're what the French call les incompetents. That was very funny.
It was very funny.
And he just goes, what? His delivery of that.
Just a good reaction to that, yeah.
And then it's something like how he's expected to pack the suitcase and he's asking for help because he says, like, I've never done such a thing before once in my life. And they suggest that he just packs water and toilet paper.
Yeah.
And fair, I wouldn't know how to pack a bag.
At 6?
I think he's about that old.
I think he's supposed to be around there. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't know what to do. I don't even think, like, at 5, 6, I was, like, picking my own clothes out of the dresser.
No, maybe
me.
he's 8 or 9, because I think Macaulay Culkin was at this time. But still, if you let them pack their own things, look what all the other kids are doing. It's just bags full of
Garbage.
toilet paper and water.
Yeah. Yeah, nobody really should be packing their own suitcase. But I can't imagine packing like 6 children's suitcases to go on a trip. That would just be insane.
And then there's the big blowout after they eat all the cheese pizza and Kevin attacks Buzz, spills things everywhere. And we get one of my other favorite lines. Look what you did, you little jerk. Which is a harsh thing to say to a kid. But we are coming right off of the 80s where you could just like yell at kids
right
all the time. That was a thing in movies that we've lost now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed the adults' responses because it felt very much like a frazzled parent not thinking about what they're saying to their child before they say it.
But the uncle was also
the
jerk.
uncle was a whole other thing. But yeah, I kind of enjoyed that part. I found on the internet that Kevin is 8.
And when he spills everything, we have that slow pan around of everyone looking at him and blaming him. Yeah. And you kind of feel that there's something visceral about it. Like, oh, I've gone too far. Like, oh, I ruined the party. This one's on me. And
I think that's a pretty common thing for people to kind of know how that feels, or at least the fear of having everyone in the room looking at you, like dropping something and everyone looks up.
And especially when you are a little kid and you feel like things are like that even when they're not. And this kind of puts you in Kevin's shoes.
Yeah.
I also really loved when his mom's sending him upstairs and he goes, I am upstairs, dummy. He called his mom dummy.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
But, you ever called your mom a name?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
Like, seriously? No.
Mm-hmm.
We do now that we're older and we like joke around, but I've never said something out of anger to my mother.
Yeah, no, me neither.
No, you'd get the shoe for that. I also love Fuller. We only get a few shots of him, played by, I think that's Kieran Culkin, his real life brother, here his cousin, and Fuller is really funny. Just the faces he gives.
He's got a really great reactions to a lot of things that are happening, and he's like, he's a very few words. Like his part, I don't know. Does he say anything?
I don't know if he actually has a line.
I was
can't
just thinking
think of
about
one.
that. But yeah, I just like love when they would cut to him and he'd have like a face on.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yep.
And of course, he gets sent up and wishes that he never had a family at all. And it's kind of like a magical element because it's not that the wish is what caused this, but they're putting that out there too. Mm-hmm. It is kind of the wish and then a bunch of happenstance.
Yeah.
What about the set design of this house?
This house is massive. And the inside was very 80s, 90s. Like it felt real, like a real house that somebody would live in. And I enjoyed just how it felt like there were just unlimited rooms in it.
Watching this movie then, the first thing myself, and I think a lot of other people thought of like, wow, a Christmas house. Mm-hmm. This house is the most Christmas house I've ever seen. Now you're coming from a world where you watch Hallmark movies and every house looks like
a Christmas house, yeah.
So it's kind of that effect has diminished over time, but this was the most Christmassy house I'd ever seen. It seemed like they put out towels and sheets and the robes and everything was Christmas themed or Christmas colored, and that wasn't a thing in movies that I had seen up to that point.
Yeah, like their whole bedroom was decorated.
Yeah, and now that's every low budget Hallmark movie's doing that. But
ever, yeah. But I kind of love it. I kind of want to decorate our bedroom now.
You want to buy special sheets for December?
Yep.
All right. So then they sleep in. There's good use of Run Run Rudolph as they're all running through.
Yeah, that was good. It created the panic that you know that they're feeling.
And that's something that we've lost to time where it's 45 minutes until our flight leaves. I hope we can make it. Now we just be like, okay, well, you've missed it already.
I'm going to call the airline.
It's not 3 hours.
Reschedule our flight.
Yeah.
Especially flying to Paris. Like that's a wild amount of time to make it to an airport.
And this movie does a really good job of setting things up and giving you little hints and something that's going to pay off later. Like the circumstances of him being left behind. He gets sent to the attic, so he's not around anyone else. His ticket gets thrown out. I don't know if you caught it, but it's really fast when they get all of the napkins and because he spills like soda, milk, something all over everything. Yeah. And they throw it out. And you can see it says Kevin on it and that gets thrown into the garbage. So when they're doing tickets, he's going to get forgotten that way. How the sister is counting everyone and that other kid is there for that moment.
The street kid,
the power outage. All of these things add up and you're like, okay, I can kind of see how they could forget somebody.
It does make sense when you put everything kind of in a checklist of things that happen, like it's unfortunate events.
Because the central conceit of this movie that he gets left behind as his family goes to Paris and doesn't realize until they're in the air seems real far-fetched. And then you see all the things happen. You're like, yeah, I could see that happening. Mm-hmm. That kind of works.
Yeah. Throwing away the ticket, like it does, it checks out.
And then there's things like right away he discovers the firecrackers, the gun, the movie. All of these things are going to show up later on too. But I do like the sequence when he first is realizing that he is home alone. And I like how often they say the words home alone in this movie.
Oh, so much.
That's a fun game for all of you out there. If you're going to see any movie in the theater and they say the title of the movie, you should stand up and applaud.
Or go, woo!
Yeah. So if you're watching Master and Commander on the Far Side of the World, is that what that movie was called? That's a bad title.
Oh, I don't know.
You probably won't do it too much, but if you're watching Titanic or Home Alone, you might do it a lot more.
Oh, true.
Spider-Man, probably
Spider-Man,
more
yeah. Really, any of the Marvel movies, because usually they're just named after a person.
But sometimes they don't call the person by that name.
Yeah, true.
But in this sequence, I like that his memory is slightly exaggerated because that's another thing that you would do. And then his first instinct, once he's happy that they are gone, is jumping up and down on the bed, eating, just running around crazy and stealing his brother's stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. The kid part of like exploring parts of the house you're not allowed and like being in places that you're like not really supposed to be is like, that was a fun sequence because you know that feeling.
What would you have done? 8-year-old Sam, you realize you can do everything you want without consequence. What would you do?
Probably like sleep in my parents' bed. Eat things I'm not supposed to. But I'm such a like...
You would have been scared of getting in trouble.
Such a parent's child that I would have been like crying and inconsolable the whole time.
Yeah, you wouldn't party at all.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be excited about being left home alone.
I don't think there are things that I would do that I couldn't do otherwise. I had both a great deal of freedom and also self-control. So my mom hid the chocolate bars, for instance, but I knew where they were hidden. But I was like, well, I shouldn't eat one. That's not a good thing to do. So I always knew. I just didn't. I'd feel too guilty.
Indy
which
is
checks
very
out with how I live
responsible.
my life.
Yeah.
Guilt. I live a guilt-based life. And then the other line, which I think it's probably quoted that you've heard, Buzz, your girlfriend. Woof. That was hilarious.
I have heard that, yeah.
And just in case you're wondering if anyone's feelings were hurt, I think it was the prop guy dressed his son up in a wig and such, so it wouldn't actually be hurting some girl's feelings.
Some like little girl.
Yeah.
That would be really hard to be like a teenage girl.
And you're just used in one shot
You're
of the movie.
ugly girl.
Yeah. Well, if you're a young boy, you can. It's like a funny thing, maybe. Hopefully for him. And that bit of him shooting the figures down the laundry chute, I 100% did that. And now I'm realizing I must have gotten it from here.
Yeah.
Or did I do it and he also did it and we just had,
similar
kids,
ideas? Yeah. Huh.
Kids with laundry chutes.
Yeah. I've never had a laundry chute, but
I loved it.
It does seem like a fun thing to play with.
So much. I played with that laundry chute a lot.
And I bet that parents would find it really annoying because you'd be like chucking cars down there and stuff. Yeah,
That's exactly what happened.
I can imagine the hijinks that would ensue.
And then he starts kind of behaving like an adult once he kind of gets most of the straight up kid stuff out of his system. And I love his version of what an adult is because it seems to be largely learnt from television. And I think that's both just funny and accurate, but then also maybe there's leaning into the idea of Kevin being kind of a forgotten kid. Like he was raised on TV. And as someone who was also largely raised on TV, I could relate to that. Because he goes and talks about all the products he's using when he's getting ready.
Right.
Like he's filming a commercial for nobody.
Yeah.
Because that's how the adult world is to him.
It's pretty great. And the fact that he's like talking to himself and everything, it's totally what would happen if you left a kid by himself for long enough.
Or when he goes and asks if the toothbrush was endorsed by the American Dental Association.
Yeah. Which is such a funny thing for a kid to know about, but it's
Probably saw it on commercial.
Totally someone that is either like an adult in his life or a commercial would have said like, oh, make sure it's endorsed by the American Dental Association or don't use it.
I also thought aftershave would be so painful.
Oh.
Because in this, he puts on the aftershave and then screams.
Oh, yeah.
So then as I got older and I had to like use aftershave, I was ready for it to really burn. But if you just don't cut yourself, it's fine.
I've never used aftershave, so I leave it up to you.
We get to see the wet bandits, and they are robbing houses and then flooding them, which is a fun detail.
I was like, oh yeah, calling card. And then I was trying to think today because I was in a meeting and it was kind of boring. I was like, what would my calling card be?
If you were a robber?
If I was a robber.
Okay, what was it?
I was thinking something like less destructive than leaving the water on, but like glitter.
You just glitter the place.
Yeah.
Glitter bomb it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Because it's hard to clean up.
The sparkly bandit.
It's everywhere. Yeah.
Another thing I've realized is so different from when I first watched this movie is the pizza kid. And I call him the pizza kid because he's, well, like a 17-year-old kid probably.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And when I saw this movie, I lumped him in as the same age as the parents or the burglars. Because, like, yeah, that's an adult.
Yeah, because adults
Because
are old.
He had a job. He drove a car.
Yeah.
So that's an adult.
Oh, those
to
are
me.
two adult things. Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh, this poor kid.
He's a
child.
He's a child. He's in high school probably. Yeah, I think it's so funny how you have no concept of like ages.
Yeah. And I think that's the first instance of him using that movie, which was called what, Angels with Filthy Souls or something?
Yeah, it was something like that. I was expecting it to be like porn.
Oh, well, I think it's a takeoff of, there's a Jimmy Cagney movie, which I believe is Angels with Dirty Faces.
Oh, okay.
Pretty solid movie.
Huh.
And I think this is a play on that. And for a long time, I thought this was a real movie, but they shot it for this, and they did like some really good work on getting it to look period appropriate too.
Yeah, because I would have assumed that it was a real movie as well.
Mm-hmm. But that was huge. I remember kids at school, like, keep the change, you filthy animal. We were all saying that in kindergarten. So I get why parents didn't love this movie.
Yeah, there's a lot of like real good one-liners for your kids to pick up.
Yep, there sure were.
And then say directly to you.
Yeah, I am upstairs, dummy.
With confidence. Oh, this is an entire generation of parents who probably hates Home Alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I think my mother has come around on it now, because I think she's watched it in recent years, and now you're far enough removed that you don't have back talking little kids.
True.
So now he's cute again. I also think this movie does a good job of giving you the right amount of kid scary, which I don't think movies do well now. I think also we are much more sensitive, and I am not one of those like, hey, toughen up, kids. Like, well, it's probably for the best that we are. But in older movies, kids would be put in much more terrifying situations.
Yeah.
And this does a good job of kind of walking that line, because one of the scariest parts, I think, is there is a van following him and that's terrifying.
Yeah, this was also like van stranger danger time.
Sure.
This was when we were told, you're like, look out for white vans. They're gonna grab you off the street.
A van tried to grab me once.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I didn't even know it was a big deal until much later. But then still my parents were like, nah, you'd probably be fine. I was walking. I was probably about 6, 7. And someone said like, oh, hop in. Your mom sent me to pick you up.
Mm.
And it was just like, I had been taught that though. Like that's one of the bits. And I just went, no, thanks. I'm supposed to walk. And they left. And I was like, oh shit, did I almost get murdered?
Yeah.
Was I that close to being murdered?
Yeah.
Or was it just someone like pranking?
Yeah, that's something that I remember like seeing or hearing in school. It was like we had an assembly of like, don't talk to people who don't know the code word. Yeah. It was code word time. And I remember we all had our fingerprints done after an assembly. Like there was like a whole police like half day thing where they like took us through activities and everyone got their fingerprints done.
Yeah, kids were just getting snatched up in our day.
Yeah, and it was like a huge deal. So you almost being abducted is kind of crazy.
It is. Also in that scene, they almost hit a child because they're not looking. And then they're like, watch where you're going, kid. Yeah. Which was the default of the time. Like, you would just get yelled at by adults all the time if you were a child walking around. At least that was my experience.
Yeah.
I was always being yelled at by adults.
Were you?
Just walking, doing nothing. Huh. Or getting thrown into fans almost.
I can't say I was ever yelled at by a child. Or by an adult, I mean.
I get yelled at by children now.
Yeah,
I was never the right age. When I was a kid, it was when your adults were allowed to just yell at kids. Huh. And now that I'm an adult working with kids, I'm in a time where kids are just allowed to yell at adults, but I can't.
Yeah.
It's never the right age to do the yelling.
You need to be backwards. Benjamin Buttoned.
Yeah, then I'd just be yelling at everyone my whole life.
Yeah, exactly. You get to do lots of yelling.
It's also good that the van is, I think they're plumbing and heating, and his other fear is the furnace.
Yeah.
That was a nice little tie-in. And that too, I was scared of my furnace room.
Yeah.
Basements in general were kind of scary when you were a kid, right?
Yeah. I remember the first house we lived in Sherwood Park, the like good bathroom was in the basement. And I remember like hating to go down there because it was scary. It was dark and it was cold and like it wasn't like fully like developed, the basement. So it was like a nice bathroom in like a storage area. And I remember being really scared of it.
My bedroom was in the basement, and we had one of those like cold storage rooms, and it was all unfinished and just concrete and these like weird wood shelves and stuff. That was all scary.
Yeah, that sounds really scary to a child. And that the furnace lights up.
Yeah.
Like that was always scary to me because I'm like, why? Like, I've been taught that fire is bad and that we should avoid things on fire at all costs. And then there's just like a giant hot tube that I'm not allowed to touch that's on fire in our basement. And that's
Seems
okay.
like a bad idea.
Yeah.
Then let's jump forward. We get that party scene. Oh, that's a lot of fun.
That was amazing. I think this kid needs to be in like the CIA. They need to be like, he needs to be teaching a class on like booby trapping things and diversions. And I thought that Christmas party looked so good from the outside, and it was so fun on the inside.
Where he's dancing too. He's enjoying it.
He's having fun.
That being said, and you're right, of course everything is heightened and like, how is the kid doing all of this? But he's not like an immediate genius.
No.
He has his mistakes and he figures things out. And then when he does the booby trap side of things, he first has to like resolve to defend the house. So there is a bit of a learning curve. It's still a movie and he's really quick at that sort of stuff, but not as instantly great at everything like kids are in movies today more.
Yeah. His amount of ability made sense for how many older siblings and cousins he had.
The other thing I remember about being a kid at this time was I was jealous of Macaulay Culkin, not Kevin, of Macaulay Culkin. I remember that like this scene and other things, and adults would be like praising him about how clever he was, and I'd be like, you know, it's just a movie, right? A kid didn't do that. A writer wrote that down. I was just like, because I was already into movies at this point. I was making my first movies when I was 6, 7, maybe 6 was my first one. So I kind of felt like I could be doing that too. Macaulay Culkin's getting all the fame.
Yeah.
Also, this was the first time that I was aware of like the world ruining someone.
Oh.
Like his fame ruined his life.
Yes.
And I would always be hearing all these things about Macaulay Culkin. They would always say like, oh, do you know he's a crack addict? Oh, he's dead. And they're saying all these things. And I was surprisingly media savvy, I guess, because I didn't believe it. And I was like, why is everyone like saying all these things just because he's famous? And then that was the first time where I realized that media consumes you. Yeah. It uses you up and throws you out. And I became aware of that because of Macaulay Culkin. And yeah, looking back on it now, like, man, that poor kid.
Yeah, I can't imagine, like, and I think it's starting to come out now because, like, all of the child actors from the 90s and 80s are, like, speaking out about, like, kind of how inappropriate their lives were at a very young age. And they were seeing and exposed to things that, like, a child should not see or do. And I think I, like, totally understand Macaulay Culkin's whole spiral, it seemed like, because it's just like I can't imagine being that famous at that age and like not being a little messed up from it.
He was just treated horribly.
Yes.
And his dad was like a real piece of garbage too. And anyways.
Yeah, it's sad.
The next kind of evolution of Kevin that I really liked is when he's doing the adult stuff, but kind of getting it.
Yeah.
Like the grocery store sequence, I think is so funny.
It's so funny.
The back and forth he has with the cashier of like, are these microwave dinners any good? Like, oh, hold on, I have a coupon for that. And then when she's asking him questions rapid fire and he has the answers. And my favorite one is like, well, where do you live? I can't tell you that. Why not? Because you're a stranger.
Exactly.
His delivery was fantastic. He's very good.
Yeah. I think it's super funny to hear him talk like an adult, like being an adult. And I remember being a kid and like pretending to like, you know, you'd play like house or maybe you didn't, but
I did.
Oh, you had 4 sisters, so of course you did.
Oh, they wouldn't play with me.
Oh, okay. But
I was the Kevin. Like my siblings didn't play with me. They were too old.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe a little.
But I remember like playing adult was like a thing that we did, and you'd say like phrases that you'd heard other adults say, or like have conversations like, let's talk like we're adults, and like that was a whole thing. And it was super fun to see him do that. And he was like, when she looks at the army man, he's like, for the kids.
Right. And then another step in this kind of, he's growing up throughout the movie is what it is. And I think I didn't realize that as a kid, but now looking on it, that's clearly what it is. First, him being a selfish child.
Yeah.
And then being a child who has freedom, and then trying to imitate what an adult is, and then finally taking agency for himself, taking responsibility. And I don't want to say becoming an adult because he's an 8-year-old and that's not a great message, but he is taking responsibility, and he starts to like do the laundry, and he overcomes his fear of the furnace. He tells it to shut up,
which
right?
is so funny.
Those are the things that I'm like, yeah, this is a solid script underneath all of this silliness.
Yeah, I liked that whole like arc that he had of being afraid, and then like being really sad, and then realizing that he can kind of do it, and then like figuring it all out himself.
Oh yeah, and meanwhile his family is in Paris, and his mother is freaking out, trying any way she can to get home. And we have to stop and talk about one of our favorites, Catherine O'Hara.
She was fabulous again in this movie.
Always.
She was a totally believable mom. She is just like so caring and does like everything she possibly can to get home to him. And I just love their kind of reunion at the end. That worked on me.
And she's so great at giving those really big performances like Moira Shit or Delia Dietz. And this is a pretty big and over-the-top movie, but her performance I found still very grounded. Like, the stress, the guilt, all of those things she feels seem real, rooted in our world. And yeah, probably a bit heightened because the movie is, but there are a lot of things like that I find ground this movie and stop it from being just a silly kids movie, because it's like 2 steps away from being that. But I think that performances like hers and some of those other things we're talking about are what make it something that can last, not just from the 90s and still be watchable now, but as you age, to like it for not just straight up nostalgia. There is there's good story and good filmmaking and good characters in here too.
Yeah, I agree. And Catherine O'Hara is a gem in whatever she does.
True. Canadian comedy royalty. And if we're going to talk Canadian comedy royalty, we have to talk about John Candy.
Yes.
So she meets him in Scranton, I think. And he is going to go and give her a ride because he's a good guy. He's the polka king. And you can tell he's just clearly improving all of his scenes, and I loved them so much.
Yeah.
One thing I do know about the behind the scenes of this movie is that he shot everything in one day and did it for $400.
Oh.
This movie went on to make, I don't know, like 400 million or something, and he got $400, and that's it.
Wow.
What a guy, John Candy.
What a guy.
So they had him for one day because they're paying him scale for the day. But one day is 24 hours. So he shot 23 hours straight.
That's when you want to be hourly. Yeah. not like the set rate.
And they just didn't have the budget. So they gave him $400.
Wow.
And I loved his improv, first of listing all those polka songs.
Yeah.
I assume that's improv. And then when he's doing that bit about talking about how bad of parents his whole group is, and he says like, oh yeah, no, I left my kid in the funeral home. He was there with the corpse all day. And he was good after like 5-6 weeks, started talking again.
Which is like such a good story to tell a mother who's like, I've screwed up my kid. He's going to be like all alone and scarred for life.
Well, then she says like, can we stop talking about this? And he's like, well, you asked. And he's like, well, that little back and forth, you can tell those are just two, because I think they overlap at like SCTV and Second City. So they've been working together for a while. And their scenes were great. There was not so much to them, but I laugh at all of it.
This seems like it would be a really fun set to be on.
Sure.
Just like with all the people in it.
But most of the time it's just Kevin alone, which seems less fun.
Yeah.
For him.
But I feel like people were around, maybe. But yeah, it just seems like a fun group of people to film a movie with.
True. I also know that Joe Pesci couldn't stop swearing, so that's why he starts doing that kind of Yosemite Sam style, like "wretchin, fritchin, fritcher," and just like nonsense words, because he couldn't stop swearing constantly. Because you've seen Joe Pesci in a few things now that I've forced you.
Yeah.
Like Raging Bull, and this is the same year as Goodfellas, which you haven't seen yet, but we will get there.
I've heard of it.
Probably my favorite Joe Pesci movie.
Huh. That's so funny that he was trying not to swear. Gotta keep that G rating or PG. I
also really liked Daniel Stern in this.
Oh.
He's one of my favorite performances, actually, as Marv.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the two burglars were such a great team. And I think you get good, like, that comedy of, like, oh, we're like completely different shapes of people. And so it's like opposites, and you get like you have a good mix of comedy in between them.
And even though we were saying how Kevin has become an adult, kind of, he's still fundamentally a kid, and we don't forget that, because he goes and tries to ask Santa to bring his family back, just in case you were like, oh, this is some like fully grown adult in a kid's body. He has like this mind of an adult. But no, they do remind you that he is still very much a child. Mm-hmm. And then he goes to church. And the Christian messaging in this is so much better than those like real Christian movies, because they preach so hard. And here, like, it gives a very good Christian message of like, oh, you're always welcome at church, and forgiveness in this time. Like, those are actual quality lessons.
Yeah, it's just like a nice little learning moment. And I liked that whole conversation with the neighbor.
Right, we didn't get to talk about the third scary thing, which is the neighbor who he has this idea that he's a killer who makes zombies or something that his brother told him about. And then he gets to meet him and realizes that he's just a sad old man. Yeah. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe I didn't, but there's always like the grumpy neighbor that you're kind of scared of. Oh, yeah, we definitely had one, but we actually had good reason to be scared of him. He was a very bad person.
Oh, okay. I think I just had like a person who may have been like, don't run on my lawn.
No, we had a real actual bad one.
Okay. I was just like always scared of this guy because he yelled at us once for being on his lawn. Mm-hmm. It was like a cul-de-sac, so like, you know,
but that guy's like an actual grump, while this guy was just trying to do nice things for everyone.
He was shoveling everyone's walks and like salting, and he was a nice guy.
And those lessons that Kevin learns throughout of, like, there is stuff about him taking responsibility, but there's a lot of him overcoming fears just by understanding what the thing is and finding out that his fears were unfounded in both the furnace and with Marley, who I assume is named that after Jacob Marley from...
I assumed so.
Because there's only like two famous Marleys, and I don't think he was a Rastafari, so...
Oh, there's Marley and Me.
The dog!
3.
I don't know anything about that movie. I'm pretty sure...
I haven't seen it.
He's a Rastafari ghost at Christmas, though, so I think he's named after both of them.
Oh.
Yeah, that dog, great reggae musician.
Great reggae musician.
Also a Christmas ghost.
That's funny.
Thank you. I can tell when I'm actually funny because you tell me I'm funny rather than laughing.
I like it.
Also, at that church, that is my favorite version of Oh Holy Night. On my Christmas playlist, that's the version that's in there.
Oh.
The music in this. Fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
They used a lot of Christmas music in a way that didn't make it feel like a Hallmark movie.
Yes.
Because it was situationally appropriate. It wasn't just like, what do we do with this like empty 30 seconds? Just throw like a nonsense Christmas song in there.
Yeah, but their Christmas music is...
unlicensed.
It seems like it is AI generated Christmas. It's all their songs are like Christmas, Christmas, it's Christmas time, have a tree. And that's not a song.
Have a tree.
But in this, I, as a child, thought this was all Christmas music, that it was Christmas music that everyone knew because I knew it. This was the Christmas music I know. It wasn't until I became like closer to being an adult that I realized this is a original John Williams score that just sounds so right that I think it's Christmas music. Which I think is kind of the highest compliment you could give this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it felt Christmassy without being like Christmas.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of Christmas movies are like, they really beat you over the head with it.
And they often use the same few songs. And this one did use Run, Run, Rudolph, which is used a lot. But it's a good use of it because they're literally running through an airport. And it was about 20 seconds.
It was like situationally appropriate.
It was.
Yeah. Whereas sometimes you're like, why are they playing this song?
Yeah.
Because they say Christmas in it 4 times.
Then we get that setting up montage. I always love a good montage. The music in that is very good too.
Yeah. Yeah. There were some good montages in this movie.
But I was always sad that he doesn't get to eat his macaroni.
Yeah. It looked like nice macaroni too. Something that an 8-year-old probably would not be able to produce.
It was microwave.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, he says, thank you for this microwavable meal. And he has a wine glass full of milk, which is a perfect touch of what a kid left to their own devices to do something fancy would do.
We'd go to Cranbrook for Christmas to see my grandpa and my aunt and my uncle, and I would get to drink out of this, like, it was probably like a shot size glass, but it had a stem and it was like crystal and it was very fancy. And I remember being like, do I get to drink out of the crystal one? And then my aunt would be like, yes, but you have to be very careful with it. Like, that was my adult thing. I was so excited about it. So yeah, being able to use a glass you wouldn't be able to use.
And then we get into that break-in and trap part of things. And that's so much later than I realized. And it's so much shorter.
Yeah, I was worried that this part, because like I don't like physical comedy that like where people are like hurting themselves. Like, I don't find that fun.
No, there was very few of the actual trap type things that made me laugh.
Yeah, but it was a fun like scene of an no. What am I trying to say? It was a fun, like, sequence. That's what it was. It was a fun sequence of events that it was just like so childlike that like an adult wouldn't think to like check if the doorknob's hot or like,
yeah, it gets very cartoonish.
Yeah, and it was fun and it was like quick and snappy, and it wasn't about how injured they were. That was the funny part. It was just like how ingenious some of these setups were, and it was quick, and it was like we moved on from them like real fast, and it was a good amount of people hurting themselves, I guess.
Did you have a favorite trap in this? Or least favorite?
I think burning my hand on a doorknob would be my least favorite.
The only one that gave me like a visceral reaction is when Marv steps on the nail.
Oh, God, yeah.
Because it's kind of slow.
Yeah.
And the setup of that, of seeing like the shoes on the first few steps, then the
perfect.
socks.
I love that, yeah.
That was well done. I like that a lot.
I think burning my hand on a doorknob, because it would not be something that I would ever think to check. And then I think my favorite, I don't know, it's not really like a booby trap, but like when he sticks his head through the doggy door and he's like there with the gun.
Yeah.
I thought that was super fun. And then the saran wrap with the like glue on it, and then the feather fan was pretty great.
I think one of my favorites, an underrated one, is when he pulls the string for the light bulb and iron falls on him.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That was clever. But
down the laundry chute.
Yeah, love a laundry chute. And then my least favorite is the nail. Favorite/least favorite. It looked, that's the one I fear the most.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think we watched another movie, Ready or Not, where she puts her hand on a nail.
Oh, yeah. That was my worst part of that, too.
Honestly could like barely look at the screen when that happens.
Yeah.
Because it was just so awful. So, yeah, nails into body parts is like so gross.
And we had to give a shout out to whoever the stuntmen were on this. Because this is pre-CG. So, like, I know you're thinking, like, well, they don't CG the stuntmen. But what they do is they'd remove mats and they'd remove wires, things that are actually keeping people safe.
Right.
They couldn't do that in this. And the types of falls they're doing, This type of stuff is actually way harder to do than like something that seems a lot bigger, like gunshots or knife stuff or getting hit by a car or explosions. Because for the most part, to do these stunts, like falling down stairs or falling on your back, you just do it.
Yeah.
That's how it's done. The stunt person just goes and falls downstairs. And they're like, no, I've just learned how to fall downstairs and hopefully not
learn
really
how to
hurt
like
myself.
fall safely.
But like,
you can't always.
In quotes, it's not happening all the time.
So yeah, that's impressive now that I know that, because it's definitely some like major falls are happening, like with the ice on the front steps. He like flips fully over on his head. Like that was crazy, and I was like, I wonder how they like actually did that. But apparently someone did it.
They probably had some sort of pads under the coat, but like you're still just doing it.
You're still just falling on ice.
It's fake in the way that like pro wrestling is fake. Like they're not actually doing all the punches and stuff, but they're really like falling and getting like broken up sometimes, right? Like you're breaking bones doing that kind of stuff. That's impressive knowing that now. I feel like if they remade this movie, the biggest change would be instead of him saying yes all the time, because I was a kid of this era and that was a thing. You'd go yes, 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 yes.
Yeah,
that's what you did. Now it'd be let's go. He'd be saying let's go all the time.
Oh yeah, I still say yes.
Yeah, because you're old.
Because I'm old. True.
One thing in this sequence that actually really makes me laugh is when the tarantula is on Marv's face and how he screams. Yeah. That scream was very funny.
That is exactly how I would scream.
Yeah.
If there was a tarantula in or around my person, I would be...
I hope it's not in your person.
I mean, in my personal space.
In your ear.
Oh, don't even say that. That is like a huge fear of mine.
Me too. Bugs crawling in my ear is a very big fear of mine.
That... Like, my skin is crawling just thinking about that right now.
Probably from all the spiders in your ear.
No. Ew. I can't even.
I'm just going to start talking again because I think you're having a whole thing over there. Go ahead. I also love when they get to the window and Marv says, like, oh, maybe he committed suicide. Yeah. That makes me laugh. And they're back and forth. We don't get a lot of back and forth between Marv and Harry, but it is very funny to me.
Yeah.
And then they are going to bite his fingers off and blowtorch his head after hanging him on the door once they catch him. But luckily, old man Marley comes and saves the day with his shovel that Kevin used to be so scared of.
Yeah, I liked the idea that I got at the end that like Marley was kind of watching over him.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't totally alone the whole movie. Like, he had an adult there if he really needed it.
And then we get the big reunion, or reunions, I guess, ×2, which, you know what, like, really worked. They work for me. Yeah. It might be schmaltz. I don't know. It seemed earned, and it seemed within the characters, and I liked it. It was very Christmassy too. It wasn't just an emotional family moment. They really made it a Christmassy emotional family moment.
Yeah, it did work for me too, and I felt like it was very emotional and real, which I liked.
And then the surprise of the whole family being there. And they're like, yeah, we took that flight that we talked about in the very beginning. And you're like, oh yeah, I guess that would have.
And they got home like 5 minutes apart, which is so funny.
And how a lot of the family doesn't even really like say anything to Kevin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we're doing our own thing.
They're like, oh, hey, Kevin. Yeah. Like he hasn't been missing for like 4 days.
And then we do get the reunion of Marley and his family as well, which was nice. And Kevin looks like he's almost crying watching it happen.
Yeah. Oh.
That was nice. I like that.
Yeah, I like that too.
I hear that's something that Chris Columbus added in. That wasn't in the script. Like, originally it was going to end with just like, oh, I've just been hanging around.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I like that little moment. I'm glad that they did it how they did it, because that was very satisfying.
Yeah, because it makes it more of a Christmas movie and not just something set at Christmas. The classic things we expect out of a Christmas movie do happen in this movie too, even though we get there in a like non-traditional way because it's a home invasion movie or a Left Behind movie, but we still get those Christmas beats of there's like a religious aspect to it. There's like learning your lesson, and then the Christmas feel good that Christmas brings people together and time for forgiveness and all of that kind of stuff comes through too. Mm-hmm. solid Christmas movie. I gotta say, Home Alone, I don't think it is overrated. I think it deserves its place in the kind of Christmas movie Hall of Fame as being one of the top 10 or so movies that people watch at Christmas time.
And now I can say I've seen it.
Yeah. So what do you think? Does it deserve to be a Christmas classic?
Yeah, I think so. I think it does. I think it's fun. It's not like overly Christmassy. Like it's not like it doesn't scream Christmas like some other movies do, like Elf and like those kinds of things that are like really, really about Christmas.
True. Yeah, I think Elf is definitely a super Christmassy movie, but I think a lot of that one I also love. I think Elf is very
I think
good.
Elf is great. No, do not think that I hate Elf.
But there's a lot of lesser Christmas movies that make up for what they're lacking by just constantly telling you how Christmassy it is.
I think that's what I meant.
This lets the Christmas come through in the actual, like those things I was talking about before, about the forgiveness and the togetherness. It comes through in that, and not just blasting Mariah Carey.
Yes. Which is fine too.
It's fine. So are you interested in watching the second one now?
I am.
All right. We will watch it before Christmas, but we will not do it on this podcast. Maybe another year we will. Probably not, though. But I do think Home Alone 2 is a good movie.
I heard, is Donald Trump in it?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he runs into him. I think he has maybe one line and maybe 10 seconds of screen time.
That's the only thing I really know about it. And
Tim
that
Curry's
he's in
it.
Manhattan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tim Curry, Rob Schneider. Oh. We get the Pigeon Lady taking up the role of the Old Man Marley.
Pigeon Lady. That's another thing that I know about that movie.
Because I think I played you that song about the Pigeon Lady.
Yes.
If you can, go listen to music by Wolfie's Just Fine, I think is what he goes by for that song. And he has a song about the Pigeon Lady, and it's very, very good.
You have played it for me, and it was entertaining.
So come back next week. We're kind of taking the week off because it's Christmas, but that doesn't mean we're completely off, because we are going to bring one of our classic Christmas episodes, and we'll be rebroadcasting our episode on Love Actually from, I think, season 1. So hopefully our audio is better than on the last. You know what? I don't think it is. I think our audio is not the best, but it's fine. I listen to a lot of podcasts out there, and a lot of them sound like junk, so we'll fit in just fine. So they're not terribly surprised. This isn't an episode of I love this, you should too. It was a I hate this, you should too.
Yes.
Because we both hate Love Actually.
We get
and you should too.
Some fights during the holiday season because we do not like Love Actually.
It's a
and a
bad
lot of
movie.
people are like, but it's so amazing.
Yeah, and if you're one of those people, listen to the episode and see if you still feel that way.
Yep.
That's coming out next week, and then we're going to be on to the new year almost, so we'll be doing a best of 2024, and not a clip show. We're going to talk about our favorite movies, books, TV shows, and music from 2024.
Yes. So
It's almost over.
It's almost over. I can't even believe it's December. It's crazy. What is time? Bye, everyone.
Let's not get into that again. Goodbye.
Ho, ho, ho.